Tonight, we connect the White House to your house through the soaring cost of lumber. For months, lumber prices have skyrocketed, and it's not just supply and demand at play. The roots of this crisis reach deep into US-Canada trade policy, with tariffs imposed on Canadian softwood lumber. These tariffs, intended to protect American mills, have instead driven up costs for builders and homebuyers. As demand for new homes surged post-pandemic, affordable lumber became scarce, adding tens of thousands to the price of a new home. For many, the dream of homeownership is slipping away, not because of credit, but because of the price of wood. Did these tariffs help American workers, or did they backfire on families and the housing market? Tonight we break down the history, the data, and the human stories behind America's lumber crisis. We'll hear from builders, economists, and those most affected. This isn't just about wood, it's about the health of the US housing market and the economic well-being of millions. Let's dive in. The US-Canada softwood lumber dispute is one of the longest-running trade battles in modern history. At its core, two very different systems. US timber is mostly privately owned, with prices set by the market. In Canada, provincial governments own most forests and set stumpage fees for harvesting. US producers argue these fees are artificially low, giving Canadian lumber an unfair edge in the American market. This fundamental difference has fueled decades of friction, leading to a cycle of tariffs, negotiations, and temporary agreements. The last major softwood lumber agreement expired in 2015, and after a brief grace period, old grievances resurfaced. The US Lumber Coalition again petitioned for relief, claiming Canadian imports were harming domestic mills. This set the stage for a new confrontation, one that would escalate under a new administration. The lumber wars, already cyclical, were about to enter their most aggressive phase yet. The stakes: billions in trade, thousands of jobs, and the price of every new home in America. The dispute is more than a trade spat. It's a battle over how two nations value their natural resources. And, for American consumers, the fallout is real. The next chapter would be written in Washington, and the impact would be felt nationwide. In 2017, the Trump administration brought an America-first approach to trade, and the lumber dispute was a prime target. Siding with US producers, the administration imposed duties averaging 20% on Canadian softwood lumber. The goal: make Canadian wood more expensive, boost US mills, and protect American jobs. But this was no negotiated settlement. It was a unilateral move, sparking immediate backlash from Canada and legal challenges at the WTO and NAFTA. Domestic lumber producers praised the tariffs, but home builders warned of higher costs and fewer homes. The administration's hardline stance marked a sharp break from decades of managed trade. Instead of compromise, it was confrontation. The result: a trade war over wood, with American homebuyers caught in the crossfire. The tariffs were meant to be permanent, not a temporary fix. The fallout would soon ripple through the entire housing market. The question: who really pays the price? The answer would become clear as prices soared. The tariffs didn't bite immediately, but when combined with the pandemic, the effect was explosive. As Americans rushed to renovate and buy homes, lumber prices soared, up over 300% at the peak. In early 2020, 1,000 board feet cost $400. By spring 2021, it was over $1,600. Even now, prices remain far above pre-tariff levels. These increases have added nearly $24,000 to the price of an average new home. Builders are forced to include escalation clauses, warning buyers that costs could rise even after contracts are signed. Canada supplies about a third of US lumber, and American mills can't fill the gap. The tariffs act as a tax on this essential supply, and that tax is passed to consumers. While supply chain issues and labor shortages play a role, experts agree tariffs are a primary driver of high costs. The numbers don't lie. American families are paying the price, and the market remains volatile. Soaring lumber prices ripple far beyond construction sites. Higher costs mean higher home prices, pushing many first-time buyers out of the market. For young families, a $24,000 jump in price can end the dream of homeownership. The construction industry, a major employer, faces delays, cancellations, and job losses, especially among small builders. When building slows, so does demand for furniture, appliances, and local services. Main Street businesses, from movers to landscapers, feel the pinch. The housing market's health is tied to the broader economy. When it stumbles, communities suffer. The social impact is real. High lumber costs worsen the affordable housing crisis, making it harder to build both homes and apartments. Rents rise, housing insecurity grows, and families struggle. What began as a trade dispute now affects the ability of millions to find a safe, affordable place to live. The consequences are economic and deeply human. The ripple effects are everywhere, and the stakes keep rising. To see the real cost, listen to those on the front lines. David Chen, a small builder in Ohio, says, "Lumber used to cost me $35,000 per home. Now it's $70,000. I can't absorb that. My buyers are getting priced out." He's lost clients who simply can't afford the new prices. Across the country, builders echo his frustration. "We either lose money or stop building. Neither is good for anyone." Construction workers worry about job stability as projects slow. Homebuyers are caught in the middle. Sarah and Tom Jenkins, near Denver, saved for years for a down payment. After signing a contract, their builder called lumber costs had pushed the price up $30,000, out of reach. They had to walk away, their dream on hold. These stories turn policy into personal hardship. The tariffs were meant to help some American workers, but they're hurting families and communities. For many, the debate over trade is irrelevant. The cost of building a future has simply become too high. The voices of builders and buyers are a powerful reminder trade decisions have real human consequences. The stakes aren't abstract, they're about homes, jobs, and dreams. The pain is widespread, and the pressure is mounting. Economists are nearly unanimous. The lumber tariffs have done more harm than good. Dr. Emily Vance of the Peterson Institute says, tariffs may help a few mills, but they hurt the entire construction sector and millions of homebuyers. The tariffs act as a regressive tax, hitting lower and middle-income families hardest. Blocking efficient Canadian supply forces the U.S. to rely on more expensive domestic wood, reducing economic efficiency. The U.S. Lumber Coalition insists tariffs are needed for industry survival, but most experts disagree. They argue there are better ways to support U.S. mills, like tax credits, workforce training, and investment in technology. Tariffs, they say, are a blunt tool that distorts the market and punishes consumers. The result: higher prices, fewer homes, and a wider gap in housing affordability. The consensus: tariffs haven't solved the problem, they've made it worse. The debate continues, but the economic pain is clear. The solution, most agree, lies in smarter policy, not higher barriers. The stakes are national, and the clock is ticking. With prices still high, pressure is mounting on Washington to act. The Biden administration has lowered tariffs from Trump-era peaks, but they remain in place, caught between lumber producers and home builders. One solution: a new U.S.-Canada softwood lumber agreement, setting quotas or export taxes to stabilize the market. Negotiations have stalled, with both sides holding firm. Industry groups urge a temporary suspension of tariffs to bring immediate relief. They also call for boosting domestic supply, harvesting more timber and investing in sawmill technology. Any lasting fix must address Canadian subsidies without crippling the housing market. The answer may be a mix of trade deals, industry investment, and smarter forestry policy. The current situation, volatile prices, economic pain, is unsustainable. The stakes: American economic stability and the dream of home ownership. The path forward requires compromise, vision, and urgency. The future of the housing market depends on it. America's lumber crisis is a lesson in the real-world cost of protectionism. Tariffs meant to help one industry have hurt millions, raising home prices, slowing construction, and stalling economic growth. The housing market is a barometer for the nation's health. When it suffers, so does the economy. The price of walling off a key trading partner is paid by American families. The challenge now: find a smarter, more balanced approach. Relief for the housing market is urgent. A stable, fair trade relationship with Canada is essential. The solution lies in negotiation, investment, and practical policy, not trade wars. The stakes are high: the cost of a 2x4 and the cost of a dream. For the next generation, the ability to build a home is on the line. Stay informed. Trade policy shapes your community and your future. The cost of a home should be set by the market, not a lingering trade battle.